Want to welcome Jewel Maidenblick to our podium on behalf of Calvin Theological Seminary.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon. It's 2:30 in the afternoon. Somewhere, right? Dear sisters and brothers in Christ, it is a pleasure and a privilege to represent the faculty, the staff, alumni, and board members of Calvin Theological Seminary as president, and to represent you. I'm also glad to tell you some very recent news from the Association for Theological Schools. This is the governing and accrediting body for 250 plus schools, United States and Canada, and they just met in terms of a meeting, and yesterday Academic Dean Ronald Vinstra and I received this news, that they said to reaffirm the accreditation of Calvin Theological Seminary for a period of 10 years. All right. That's the longest period you can get a renewal for. And we don't take that lightly, especially because, as you maybe have read through different things, that the seminaries are against some prevailing winds. There are seminaries that are closing. There's a seminary by the name of Fuller Seminary that's going to move from Pasadena to Pomona, California, as part of their getting ready for the future. They gave a report where they highlighted a number of our strengths, and I thought it might be helpful for you to hear their words. These are not our words. These are the words of our peers as they looked at our material. And you actually saw today at the retirement banquet, Michael Williams, who was our ATS self-study director, along with our academic dean, really leading that group of material, our study, our assessing of ourselves, presenting a material. They came for a site visit. And this is what is now said by ATS for us, for your seminary. That attention be given to maintaining and enhancing these distinctive strengths, a shared sense of mission that visibly permeates the entire institution, a common commitment to the work of the seminary, and a deep love for the church by all its stakeholders. Second, the school's close and mutually beneficial relationship with Calvin College and its understanding of its historic and synergistic role as an agency of the Christian Reformed Church in North America. Third, the school's financial health and stability. And fourth, a focus on both academic rigor and vocational formation, and a commitment to laying out a vision for holistic student formation. They usually give 3 points, they gave us 4. We're glad. And that helps us frame our future, our continued future. But I want us to take us back to March 15th, 1876. It's on that date that a pastor is installed as the first professor of the newly established theological school of the Christian Reformed Church. Garrett Egbert Bohr began as one professor teaching 5 students, and from that time frame we move forward to what we now know as Calvin College and Calvin Theological Seminary. This journey of 142 years could not happen without people like you. And so I say on behalf of so many, for all of you, thank you for your prayers, your support, your encouragement. I'm now entering my 8th year as president. In the last 7 years, we've seen various types of growth and development. Choosing what to highlight in just these few moments is almost impossible. I invite you to stop by to the seminary tonight for refreshments. It's not just cookies. We have meatballs and egg rolls for you, although we've eaten a lot this week. As we open up the doors of your seminary to all of you at our open house, please join us. Some of you are numbers people. Let me give you just a few numbers. We'll start with this one. This year, we saw 38% of our student body come from outside the United States and Canada. Calvin Theological Seminary, CTS, is called to serve, and we are called to serve the Christian Reformed Church and the global church. This year marked the 25th anniversary of our PhD program that helped accelerate our global reach. This year, we had students who came from the following countries: Argentina, Brazil, Canada, China, Costa Rica, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, El Salvador, Ethiopia, Guatemala, Honduras, India, Indonesia, Ireland, Japan, Kenya, Mexico, Myanmar, Netherlands, Nicaragua, Nigeria, Peru, Rwanda, South Africa, South Korea, Sweden, Taiwan, and the United States. For you numbers people, that's 29 different countries. And it started with one professor with 5 students. At where I've been sitting, there's a postcard that we sent out with a number of people that were pictured at the chapel. On the back, it has the identity, once again, of all those different countries. You're welcome to pick up. There's just a few left. And I need to say, because some of you will notice, that on this postcard is Reverend Howie Vanderwell. And he's there with his cane, and we still miss him. And we're glad that you have a book, so maybe you want to use this as a bookmark even for that. So Calvin Seminary is making an impact on many people. On local Latino and Latina ministry through 2 certificate ministries led by Professor Mariano Avila. One in Latino ministry and the other in family care, taught completely in Spanish. At the end of this presentation, I'm going to share with you that any person can, via distance, learn more about the Bible in Spanish through 2 separate courses, and we'll talk more about that, or you can come to the open house. With Calvin College, we are making an impact on students who are in Hanlon Prison in Ionia, Michigan. Through that one program, we are influencing the prison system of the state of Michigan, and who knows where those ripples will lead us. Through all our work, there is this constant theme that unites and underlines our work. We are forming disciples of Jesus Christ who will form communities of disciples of Jesus Christ. Today, we are blessed by the innovative ministry of the Director of Vocational Formation, Jeff Vandermolen, who joined us along with other new faculty in the last few years. And by name, Amanda Benkhuizen, Sarah Schreiber, Donjba Gibson, Corey Wilson, who's been here as a faculty advisor, as well as visiting professors Young-An Kong and Gary Burge, as well as Sarah Chun and Jeff Scheidek, who serve in the Dean of Students office. And I know this is a lot of new people who make up your seminary. Come by, meet them, get to know them. So how we do the work of formation and training may change over the years, but the heartbeat of serving the church and forming students continues. We know this work is important for different reasons. The demands of pastoral leaders that's upon them is always growing. We live in a context that's changing, and there's a context of ministry specialization, focus, chaplains ministries, being just one that we see grow. We're in a denomination that's seen an increase of Article 17s, where the question many times comes down to what's the particular fit for ministry. Our own internal assessment through a survey done by the Calvin College Center for Research in 2013 told us that our alumni and students themselves reported that 40% of them felt ill-prepared for leadership in a local church. 45% felt uncertain of their particular call to ministry. And there's a lot of ways to view that information, and we chose to hear it as a rally call to increase the formation of our students as part of their preparation for ministry. So we birthed, again, in a way, the Vocational Formation Office, and they are reimagining the ways we can use various tools for the increased formation of our emerging leaders. One of the key ways that is happening is the move to a concurrent contextual learning or concurrent internship. So that MA and MDiv students entering now will serve in a local church or ministry for the first 2 years of their education, right alongside a seasoned mentor that we invest in with additional training. Jeff Vandermolen leads with Chris Wright in that CTS Office of Vocational Formation. In the following video, it highlights some of the formation that is taking place in the lives of our students as they partner in new initiatives with local churches. So I invite you not just to listen to me, but watch and listen to a few of the stories.
Calvin Seminary has always had this history of putting students in a classroom where they can learn, and then trying to put them in ministry contexts that were meaningful and would allow them to get practical, hands-on ministry experience. What's different right now is we're trying to run those things in parallel tracks so that they're in conversation together. And we do that by putting them in that context immediately when they arrive. So they're working in a church, they're working with a mentor, they're having someone walk alongside them, asking prodding questions. And then we're putting them with peers to do the same thing. And we think that by having them live for 2 years at that intersection regularly between classroom and context, and regularly being attentive to what the Holy Spirit is doing in them, will help them be better formed for ministry.
I came to Calvin Seminary right out of undergrad. I thought that seminary would be all about the academics, and having this internship has completely changed my opinion of what seminary should be, because we should be in churches and we should be working as we're learning, because ministry is not just about the right answers and what you can say, it's also about how you act and what you do.
Serving at Lee Street has given me the chance not only to be warmly welcomed by a congregation that loves and cares for me, but also to practice my ministry skills as I've had opportunities to grow in my preaching abilities, to do pastoral care visits, but also to attend council and classis meetings and to get a better sense of what it truly means to serve in pastoral ministry within the Christian Reformed Church.
Through this contextual learning, I'm beginning to see that it's a journey that we get to share together, and that as I serve other people, they also get to serve me, and that it's more about what I am becoming rather than what I am doing, and that is something that we get to do together.
Pastors practice ministry somewhat like doctors practice medicine. All of us need practice in order to do things well. So each intern that comes into the local church setting gets to practice so that they can better ready themselves for ministry after they get a call to a local church. Pastors, like myself, we too need to keep practicing to get better at what God is calling us to do each and every day.
Calvin Seminary graduates will be able to think theologically, because the seminary does a great job doing that, apply the Bible in a context, and because of the internship, the really rich part is they'll be able to make it culturally relevant to the people who are sitting in the pew and out on the street.
Having the chance to serve contextually within a concurrent internship has been such a tremendous blessing. So for example, this past semester I took the Forming Worshiping Communities course with Dr. John Whitley at Calvin. And learning from him has given me the opportunity to now take so many ideas from the classroom at Calvin and to apply that to how I plan and lead worship here at Lee Street.
My approach to the classroom now is in terms of allowing God to use the tools that are available to shape and to chip and to mold me to become that useful tool that He wants me to become.
Because of vocational formation, I will be equipped not only to teach and to share the word, but also to love and to walk beside people as they go through life and whatever life throws at them.
I think sometimes mentors believe that we can have all this amount of knowledge to pour into a student's life, when actually I have just as much to learn from my intern. My intern Ben has come into this experience with this incredible joy and excitement for ministry. And I think sometimes as an older pastor, we can lose some of that excitement.
Interns bring a different perspective. You know, very rarely do we have young adults on council or on staff, typically. So just to have their voice at the table influencing what we do and how we reach people helps us diversify and reach their own age group.
We can partner with churches at a great distance. If a church knew someone that said, I'm loving in ministry, I love what I do, I love the calling God's had, but I'd like to learn some more or get some more formation, I think we have something we could offer them then and say, hey, let's invest in this. We understand how to work from context to classroom and classroom to context. can we serve you as the churches by doing that?
To be honest, I think this is the best way to experience seminary. I think that it immerses you in a ministry context that always causes you to seek, always causes you to dig deeper, and to bring whatever you learn in the classroom into a very practical ministry context.
The church wins because they get some much needed help in ministry. The intern wins because he or she gets that experience as necessary for ministry in the future. And also the seminary wins because they get to mesh the theology with the practical experience that the students are getting in the church setting.
My hope is that the church is served, that the church flourishes, that God's kingdom grows, that people far from Jesus come to know Jesus, because churches flourish. And I think there's a direct relationship between churches that flourish and leaders that are flourishing. Students will be able to graduate from Calvin Seminary and say, I've got a degree, and I know who Jesus has called me and redeemed me to be in his kingdom.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Vandermolen, and I have the privilege of serving as the Director of Vocational Formation for the students that are being formed and prepared for ministry. I come to the job after being a pastor for 20 years in a variety of contexts, in London, Ontario first, as a church planter for 10 years in Calgary, Alberta, and then also in Oakville most recently. And 2 years ago, we had this opportunity, this invitation to come and say, let's reimagine what we could do for forming students. And for a long time, Calvin's has always been an institute that wants to do great education. And we want now to mesh that really well with leaders who are well-formed. We know that when Jewel referenced earlier the Article 17s, when those happen, as a pastor watching those for 20 years, they happen not because someone doesn't understand their theology. They can probably still articulate, theories of atonement quite well, but it's in the managing of themselves, in their own formation, in our own formation, that we struggle. And so we're hoping to raise that temperature on the formation of leaders, having them live, as it says, at the intersection of those classroom and context together. Now, I want to draw your attention to Jerry's quote. Jerry, he's from Kenya, born and raised. He planted a church in Rwanda after the genocide there, and then is now at Calvin Seminary seeking education. And he came into my office and said, what do I need to do to learn how, for ministry? And I wanted to say to him, would you teach us what you've learned? Because he's been formed so much. But if you caught what he said, his comment was, I'm less concerned about what I do and more concerned about what I'm becoming. And if he becomes all that Christ has redeemed him to be, he will lead well. And Jerry's intent on that. And that's sort of the focus of what we're trying to do. We're trying to speak really well about formation, asking people to think, who has Jesus redeemed you in particular to be? We know we're forgiven. We know God's grace is ours. But then there's a particularity we can discover, that God's redeemed us and is forming us for particular calls. And we're hoping to change those numbers, Jewel mentioned earlier, so that people walk out confident of those sorts of things. Part of this, you'll notice, I'm born and raised Canadian, so some of us that are in Canada, we can raise our hands and go, we know that context. There you go, Marilee, thanks for participating. I was talking to a Canadian colleague a while ago and explaining what I just explained in the video and here. And their comment to me was, hey, that's fantastic, love the idea, but what are you going to do for the rest of the denomination? Because the reality is we can place students, we have them in 37 different churches right now in the greater Grand Rapids area, in a variety of different denominations as well. Some non-denom Baptist church. We're heading into I think a Kojic church is going to partner with us in the fall. We're placing students in a variety of settings. That's really helpful. But we're starting to imagine now, what happens at the end of those 2 years? How could we serve you and the broad denomination? We can't promise anything right now, but we're imagining what would it look like for us to then say to one of our students that's been formed, that's gone through 2 years of seminary and said, what would you want to move to California? Because there's a church there that would like to use your gifts and now move from a residential student to a distance student. And you begin as a church to continue to partner with us in your context to form the leaders that are needed for the future. We're not sure how that's all going to work. There's logistics, but we're dreaming to say, how can we continue to grow the formation of leaders and our service and partnership with you as churches? Again, thanks, Marilee, for participation. I want to just draw your attention. So the people in that video are fantastic. They were picked because, honestly, they're knocking it out of the park. Pastor Elaine's over here, one of our mentors. Fantastic. She's going to hate it that I'm doing this. I want to draw your attention because in the shifting from all that we've done to a whole new way of programming, there's a teammate of mine who is sitting right back at the back. Her name is Chris. Chris, can you wave for a second? So all the administrative things that happen to change this whole thing around, they belong to her, and we wouldn't be able to do any of it without her. So I do need to acknowledge, if you would join me, just. So I know that we're now into the time where all of you are wondering when you'll be done. So I'm not going to tax them, but I do want to give a very clear invitation. We're trying to hold real loosely and be co-creators with the church in how we can do this. So if you can think of inventive ways we could partner with you, where we could serve you no matter where you are in our denomination, would you call me, email me? We'd like to figure out how a local being in process of being formed leader could serve your church and in your context. And we'll try to be creative about that. We look forward to that conversation. I know there's more to be said from the seminary, so thank you for the time.
Our presentation today was directed to this synod being part of one emphasizing a calling on gospel proclamation. Jeff is leading us into something new, but I now want to highlight something that has aided the church and pastor for now over a decade, and we celebrate that. We've been blessed by the work of Reverend Scott Jose, who serves as the director of the Center for Excellence in Preaching, and based on the vision of my predecessor, Dr. Neil Planiga, we continue to focus on teaching and preaching the gospel. You're welcome to check out that work and hear Scott to share more about this ministry and how it's grown and impacted many, many of you and churches. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everybody, and President Greenway, dear leader. He told me to call him dear leader. He didn't say that to anybody else? No? Oh, well. Well, I'm here just to share briefly about a couple of things that we're doing at the Center for Excellence in Preaching at the seminary. Like Jeff, I want to acknowledge, sitting right next to, well, she left, but right up there is my partner, Mary Bardolph. Mary, wave. Mary also is the heart of CEP. Next week, we have a conference at Snow Mountain Ranch in Colorado for 20 pastors and their families. The total group with spouses and children are 114 people. That's a ton of logistics. Mary does all that stuff really, really well, so I'm very thankful for her work. I just want to highlight two things we've been doing lately at the center. One is that we received 4 or 5 years ago a $500,000 grant from Lilly Endowment as part of their initiative to strengthen preaching. That program ended last year, but we also have recently received last fall a $250,000 sustaining grant, a matching grant that we're matching, to continue the work of the initiative to strengthen preaching. And we want to find out how we can make and prepare preachers better. And so really part of the heart of the work that we did, the slide doesn't seem to be advancing. So if you want to advance it, Fiona, can you? Is peer groups. All right, so Lilly Endowment loves peer groups. And so we had a number of peer groups each of the years, 2014 through 2017. And so we had a total of 30 peer group leaders across those 4 years. And just tell you briefly that we had 10 groups, 12, 8, and 17 groups actually last year. A total of 370 pastors participated in these peer groups, and I'll tell you in a minute what their focus was. They were geographically well spread out. You can see in Canada and the US, groups met all over. And also, I just want to highlight, because we're thankful for this, because this is part of how Calvin Seminary can minister to not only the Christian Reformed Church in North America, but the larger church. We had a great ecumenicity represented in these peer groups. We had, of course, Christian Reformed and Reformed pastors, but we also had Baptist, Presbyterian, Methodist, Disciples of Christ, Lutheran, Evangelical Free, Vineyard, United Church of Christ, Episcopalian, and we actually had one Roman Catholic in one of our groups. So, and the purpose of these groups was to come together and to focus on a few key questions. What are the unique communication challenges preachers face in the 21st century? What's the landscape out there? All of this is part of our seminary, in particular, being in a listening mode. We want to know give us dispatches from the trenches. What's it like out there? What are the communication challenges unique to now? What practices are being utilized that best help to meet those challenges? And how well or not well did seminary train pastors to encounter and deal effectively with those challenges? And then, of course, what suggestions would you give seminaries today in order to help them better equip future preachers? Part of our extension sustainability grant that the program we have right now is that we're hoping to get our faculty to hit the road and visit CTS alum in their contexts of ministry, talk to those pastors, area pastors in the classes, pastors from other denominations. We want to be in a listening mode. We want to know, what can we do at the seminary to train you better to preach in the 21st century? Because if there's one thing that we know, it is that preaching remains a vital center to worship and to the formation of believers. It remains as important as it has ever been. So what can we do better? That's the purpose of this grant program. We received massive amounts of data. I won't go into it. I could talk for 2 hours about what we learned, but we received massive amounts of data that we harvested from all those peer groups, and we will continue to harvest data. And when seminary next takes a look at our curriculum and moving forward, these are going to be key data points for us to do better, to train people to preach. So that's a Lily program we've been doing. Then just talk about briefly, the big front door for the Center for Excellence in Preaching is our website. It's updated every week with brand new sermon starters that go live every Monday morning for lectionary texts of the next Sunday. And we also have now regularly each week new sermon starters in Spanish as well. And we have so those change every week in our archive. So even if you're not a lectionary preacher, you could come to our website. I'm preaching on Luke 4. Type Luke 4 into the search pane. You'll find sermon starter ideas, textual insights, illustration ideas for hundreds and hundreds of texts. We have standing resources, recommended commentaries for all books of the Bible. We've got a new section on movies for preaching, some ideas about illustration possibilities from film, also from reading for preaching. A lot of Neil Plantinga's golden nuggets from his preaching, reading over the years is there. So we have a lot of standing resources. This is our big front door. And it has grown steadily since we launched the website in August 2005. Our website has grown steadily, and we are right now, as of this year, really on a record pace. So through late May, when I put the slide together, this year, right, just this year since January, we have averaged 18,800 different pastors per month who have come to the website at some point. And actually, we set a record last month. I checked it this afternoon. We had just shy of 21,000 different pastors come to the website last month alone, just in May. So you know, unless the CRC has grown dramatically, Mr. President, we're reaching well beyond the CRC. A lot of them come back more than once. We've been averaging over 31,000 visits overall. And so far through mid-May, over 600,000 pages of our material were downloaded. As of today, it's actually 700,000. So we're well on pace to probably have 1.5 million to 1.6 million pages of material from their website that will be downloaded by the end of this calendar year. So we're very, very thankful, very, very grateful that the website has that kind of reach, that we're able to influence preachers around the world, but principally probably in North America, U.S. and Canada. Our programming continues. This is summertime season. Like I said, we have a seminar next week. Neil Planting and I are hosting a one-week seminar here on campus in July. We co-sponsor the Worship Symposium and the Festival of Faith and Writing. And through all of these ways, we do what Neil Planting's original vision for the center was, and that is just help preachers do their job a little bit better and make it a little bit easier for them to do it a little bit better by providing them with the resources they need. So we're grateful for that ministry. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Scott. We also track when pastors visit the website. I'm not telling, all right? We'll just... All right. In the short time we have left, I wanted to just give you hopefully we'll give you some of the glimpse and breadth and depth of our ministry, your ministry through Calvin Seminary. In the remaining minutes, I want to remind you how many times this journey begins. It begins with a heart wondering, God, are you calling me? At the Synod of 1990, I was present as an elder delegate. During one of the breaks of that two-week synod, and that two-week synod met as a delegate from classes Southeast U.S., I sat across from Stan Workman for two whole weeks. Stan was there in 1990. He's here today. Stan, go home sometime, okay? But what I did during that time is I wandered over to the seminary. My wife Jackie and I were wrestling with whether God was calling us to move from South Florida to Calvin Seminary. I was a lawyer who was deeply involved in our local church, and we wondered if God was calling us to switch callings. And there are still people who wrestle with their feelings. For 6 years now, and people are still finding out about it as new, we've been offering training and formation via distance. You've heard that. Through local mentoring, intensive weeks, and cohort learning, we've been able to offer a way where students live, work, and minister where they are and still obtain a Calvin Seminary education. How does it work? Rather than have me tell you, let's listen to a student, Kathy Vanna, as she describes her journey. I invite you to listen to her story.
I had to do this presentation for one of my classes. So you had to describe your church and where you are. So I took a picture of the corner there. I was like, so on the corner of a paved road and a dirt road, in the middle of nowhere, is where my church is. In the middle of nowhere. I'm Kathy Vanna, and I'm from Cadillac, Michigan. I think I've always probably felt led to go into ministry, and so this was something I wanted to pursue, and the distance program just opened up a door for me that I probably never thought would be available. I think there was a lot of factors for me. First of all, my husband loves what he does. He's a teacher, and we're really grounded in our community. My extended family is really close. I'm surprised how well it does work with our family life. I've asked my kids, do you feel like this is, impacting you in a negative way? And I don't really feel like they feel like I'm going to school. Going to seminary has caused me to look at me and really figure out, who I am and what my weaknesses are and what my strengths are. And there's a lot of, internal reflection going on. One of the things I've really appreciated is it's given me a purpose. Being a stay-at-home mom was wonderful, but my kids are all in school now, and I think a lot of my life I've been asking, okay, God, where do you want me to go next? What am I supposed to do with my life? And I'm not asking those questions all the time right now. There's a purpose to my days. I think I was surprised by the relationships that I was able to cultivate, new friendships, even though I'm in a distance program. Even just those few weeks that we're on campus really allows you to get to know other people. That's something I really appreciate about it that I never thought would happen through a distance program. Probably my favorite class this year was Greek. I really enjoyed learning Greek. It was like solving a puzzle to me, figuring out, how all the pieces fit together. And I really liked my prof. I want to keep an open mind about where I'm going to go with this. I haven't seen a lot of female pastors, so that's, an area that it seems a little foreign to me. And talking to other people that have been through seminary, I think it's just really important to keep an open mind with it. I enjoy working with youth. I enjoy working with worship. My husband and I love doing ministry with him. So it's just hard to say, well, what direction are you going to go with this? Well, I'm just hoping God's going to open doors when I'm done with this. And, I think I'm learning as I go through this, and hopefully it's going to become clearer as I get towards the end. It's just been neat to walk through that door and see where God's leading. I don't think I would have ever done this otherwise.
I should have told you put your phones on airplane mode or something like that. At your tables over the lunch hour, then you've received one of the new forums. This actually doesn't have a specific date on it because we want it to kind of live for a while. There's still going to be a forum that's coming out on church discipline very shortly, but this is a forum that's a special edition. You can see parts of it especially are hopefully asking and answering this question: why seminary at all? Why go to Calvin Seminary specifically? Yeah, and there's actually people who like Greek. I heard some of the laughter that people had. But there's more I could tell about a new MA in ministry leadership that we hope to put more and more online. We had a conversation last night about Doctor of Ministry conversation. So stay tuned. And one of the things is keep checking our website for what's new. So we have a course in the fall that we're offering completely online, completely in Spanish, in Ephesians. And Professor Mariano Avila is leading that. And then this spring, he's doing one on a survey of the Old Testament. There's also a highlight related to our conference coming up at the end of July, Loving Your Neighbor Conference, Ministry Among Migrants, Immigrants, and Refugees. There's a poster that's been given to you, and maybe you want to pass it on to others. Once again, we'll have more forums and like. And then the Resound podcast, that's a way for us to continue the conversations we have. So Gary Burge talking about the Middle East, or Donja McGibson speaking with Jeff Vandermolen about visiting the African American History Museum. There's a lot there. I'm just privileged, once again, to highlight this. And again, give you thanks for your support, your encouragement, your prayers. To God be the glory. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Jewel. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Jeff. We're thankful for your leadership at Calvin Seminary and taking up the challenges. It's great to see that all happening. I'd like to invite the banner editor forward now. You might remember earlier in our sessions, I think it was John Teneinheis suggested that maybe there'd be some interaction between the banner editor and maybe some of our youth representatives. And that conversation took place. And so just as follow-up with that, I've invited him to give us a little summary of what you talked about. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you, Mr. President. Just a question. Since Synod has pretty much finished all our advisory committee reports, does this mean that I can take as much time as I want?
The body has spoken.
Oh, okay.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
So noted. Because it's a response to something that came on the floor on Monday, you would forgive me if I don't have a snazzy PowerPoint slide or videos to go along with my talk here tonight, right now. But I do have 10 points. No, I'm just kidding, not so much. I want to first thank Ben Brosma. Did I get it right? Is Ben Brosma? Right, okay, good. For the question that he brought up on the floor, and it's really very encouraging, actually. It's very encouraging to me because it shows that young people, his generation, wants to get engaged and actually wants to get engaged by the banner, which is great. And I think that's a good sign, and it should be very encouraging for all of us. So I want to just say that, and it's great because the timing is perfect because I wanted to talk with the young adult representatives. In fact, reminder, tonight dinner, I'm having dinner with all of them, all 6 of them at a table, so I could actually get feedback from them and pick their brains. So we had talked, Ben and I personally one-on-one in the hallway briefly, and I'm going to tell you what I kind of told him about some of the efforts that the banner have in terms of trying to reach out to a younger demographic and readership. But it's something that is also close to my heart as well. It's something that I have been very much want to do. So I am also mentioned about this in the advisory committee as well, in my advisory committee report, and they'll probably be hearing this twice, so I hope you don't mind that. So I said that in trying to reach out to a younger readership, I'm trying a kind of a two-pronged approach. One, I had to deal with the issue of distribution and access, and how we could perhaps get to the younger readership audience. And that was through, one of the ways is to recognize that a lot of, not everybody, as Ben told me himself, but a lot of younger readers tend to read off their screens rather than off a hard copy print. And so we had to try and increase our website presence. And one of the things that we have done is launch a banner app, a free banner app in both Android and Apple versions, so that young people could just read it off their phones or their tablets and iPads. In fact, I think when I told Isa about the app, he just downloaded it right away, right? Yes. There you go. So that's one of the ways to try and make it more accessible to what it is that they're already using, the tools that they are using already. So that's the one thing. The second thing, of course, even with the print, we still want to refresh it, and you probably noticed that we have revamped the design, the look of the banner print copy since January this year, and so we're trying to make it more attractive for younger readers. Second thing, of course, is the content piece. We need to have content that deals with topics and issues that are relevant and that interests the younger readers and matters to them. And one of the ways we are trying to do that too, for example, is if you notice in our new format, we have introduced a new column called Cross-Examination, which deals with apologetics type of questions. Questions is, did Jesus rise from the dead? Is the Bible trustworthy? And these are questions that from my campus ministry experience, I used to be a campus minister for 15 years before I became an editor. A lot of questions that young people grapple with and ask. And so we try to create a column for that to kind of deal with those questions. Just a neat story here, a little bit about that column. There's a teacher in a Christian high school who teaches apologetics, and he told me that he is now using the banner articles, the cross-examination articles in his curriculum for his class with his high school students, because they're nice, short, one-page, to the point, and it's a good way to sort of engage them and get them to start asking those questions and then have a discussion about it. So there's an idea for your Christian high school teachers, if you want to go back and tell your local Christian high school teachers about it, to use the banner articles. Just a shameless plug there, okay? And then secondly, I will have to try and get, I'm trying to recruit more younger writers as well, so to write articles for us, and perhaps that they would also write from the perspective of their generation, and sort of speaking to peers. And so that's sort of my hope as well, and I've been trying to do that. And there's a few other things, but I just want to highlight one more thing too in the print. I don't know if you noticed this, but we actually right now have a essay contest going. It's for college enrolled students, Christian students, to write a essay for us. And first prize is $1,000 US. All right. That's the first prize. We have a donor to thank for that. It's one way for me to try. Well, it's one way for me to try and get more younger readers sort of get attracted to the banner, to know about it, and to hone in on us. But it's also a way for me to try and identify good young writers, perhaps good budding young writers up and coming, that maybe I could tap in the future to write for us furthermore. And there's a nice, interesting story about that too, because my first published article was in the banner way back in 1997 when I was still in college. And it was because of a banner essay contest. No, there was no prize money at the time. It was just that, the first 3 winners get published. That was it. So we are upping up the ante a little bit here now. So that's how I got my break. And so maybe I'm hoping to uncover some hidden gems among young people this time around as well. Of course, if we don't get any entries, we can't give the money away. So just want to alert you all to know that, and you could encourage any young Christian college students that could write an essay on why Christianity still matters. That's the topic. Why Christianity still matters today. And hopefully win $1,000. Send them my way. All right. Take a look at the ad at the back of the print copy. That's in the back pages. There's an ad about it. Or go online. Could I just take a few time just to say a little bit more about young adults in general? Is that okay?
You can. You should be mindful of 2 things. One, we have a motion yet to take from the floor.
Oh, okay.
And 2, you and that motion are standing between us and dinner.
Okay.
Yeah, so. But we welcome your words, right, and we appreciate it.
Sure. As I said, I was a campus minister, so doing ministry and reaching out to younger adults is something that is near to my heart. And I just want to encourage all of us, all our churches, all our classes to keep that in mind too as a priority and not just an afterthought. And it's very important. I just want to say a few things that from my experience, and take it for what it's worth, is not scientific or anything, but it's just my experience about what perhaps young adults might be looking for. And you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. All right. I think one is that young people are not interested in gimmicks. They want authenticity. All right. It's not about getting flashy things or the disco ball or the great music or whatever. Those maybe some of them may be great, but it comes down to being authentic. That's probably the most important thing. Secondly, I think I heard a lot even in my ministry. Young people want space for questions, for their questions. I've heard so many times young people who feel frustrated with church sometimes because they feel like they can't ask their tough questions, or feel like when they ask those questions, they get judged or they get shut down too quickly, and they can't have the space to actually wrestle and explore those questions. I just want to encourage all of us to create those spaces for them. And I think they really want genuine community. They want things to be genuine and true, real, not hypocritical, no hypocrisy. I think hypocrisy is one of the worst things we could have, especially young people. They can smell it, and that turns them off, in my experience. And I think the last thing I'll just say is, I think you see it tonight too with some of the questions and the comments that was made by the young adults in our sessions. They don't want to just talk. They want action. They want to make an impact in this world. They want to make a difference now. and not just talk about things. And those are important to think clearly, to articulate clearly, to pray. But they want to act. They want to see action being done, and they want us and the church and all of us to care about what's happening in the world. So that's why just my encouragement to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I know you enjoyed your time speaking with our youth representatives, and we appreciate your words as well, and just some good sound guidance there too. We have one more thing to take up, and that is a motion from the floor. And I'm going to invite Casey Jen to, are you here? There we go. If you would head to a microphone, and I'm going to invite you to, there it is already, fantastic. If you would read this as well as the grounds, and then if it's seconded, we will discuss it. You're from what? The beautiful classes, Thornapple Valley? Good people come from that classes.
Casey Run, classes, Thornapple Valley. The proposed recommendation is that Synod instruct the Executive Director and the Council of Delegates to explore how to improve the gender and ethnic diversity of the Judicial Code Committee. And the two grounds are the imbalance on the JCC between genders and among ethnic groups can seriously hamper the work of the committee. Ground two, Synod has repeatedly urged that the membership of the denominations, board, and committees reflect the diversity of the denomination.
It is properly before us. It has been moved. It has been supported by our faithful supporter. Now is the, yes, Casey, go ahead.
Since you called me up to read it, I couldn't hit the speaker cue.
Oh, go ahead.
Can I speaker cue it?
Please do.
Okay. I'm proud to be part of a denomination that values diversity. But during the painful discussion on Tuesday, I recognized for myself that there are quiet voices to be heard. There are wise people to be invited to the table so that we can prayerfully listen to each other. So I intend to vote yes on this proposal to remind us that we need to work together and we need each other so that we can faithfully proclaim the gospel in God's world in our time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now's the time to discuss this motion. I have no names in the queue yet.
Mr. Chairman, could we see grounds? It's wonderful looking at.
Is that what you're looking for? I'm going to give you a minute since this is the first time most of you have seen it. Again, if you'd like to speak to this, I invite you to enter your name into the speaker queue. It's 10 to 5. Okay. Actually, Richard first, and then Ruth.
Domine Dickey, Classes, Toronto. I speak in favor of this motion, just to get it out on the table for our Vice President. It's important to have the gender and ethnic diversity. That's extremely important, but it's also very important to have solid and good people on this as well. And sometimes we don't have enough of the diversity available, and that, I think, produces a challenge. And so we also have to be aware of that. I speak very much in favor of it, but there are challenges.
I think you do better.
Unless I'm wrong, and Steve is going to tell me I'm wrong, please.
Steve is going to speak.
I don't believe it's the intent of this motion to tinker with what's already leading the composition of the JCC, and that is ministerial, lay, and legal expertise on the committee.
Thank you.
Up next, Ruth Bovin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ruth Bovin from Classes Grand Rapids South. And because of my experience with the JCC, what I learned was that that's made up of 4 pastors, 4 attorneys, and 4 lay folks. And so it does present a challenge in terms of, because we haven't had women in ministry for very long, and a number of the people who served on the committee were retired, you know, it presents, as Richard pointed out, some challenges. I did notice, however, when it was presented as the makeup of the committee, that after the judicial code process was finished, I was invited to serve on the committee because I did complain about the lack of diversity. And I did say no, but because I also need to set up boundaries, we all know that as pastors, I did notice that another woman pastor had been assigned. So they are working on that, and I'm thankful for that.
Thank you. John Maidendorp.
John Maidendorp, Classes Huron. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I speak in favor of the motion, and I just wanted to get up to express an appreciation that I think many of us feel for our brother Casey, for putting into words what many of us were feeling, and for doing that well. Thank you, Casey.
And Steve. Okay. Oh, Dina.
Dina Nicolai, Classes BC Northwest. Sorry, I know you all want to go for dinner. I speak in favor of it, but this is also an admission on my part, because I recall about a month ago receiving an email from my classes clerk, who is here, looking for a woman with legal expertise for this committee. And I confess I just didn't really understand what it was, and I couldn't think of someone off the top of my head, so I didn't do a very good job of taking seriously that request. So that's my confession, and then maybe my urging to all of us as representatives of our classes to go back and do the hard work of really thinking through who might be appropriate for this, and not just leaving it up to Steve and the Council of Delegates. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I have no other names in the queue. You have the motion before you. It's properly before us. It's been moved and it's been seconded. I think we're ready to vote. All in favor of this motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we're wrapping up our work. A couple of announcements. We have an event tonight at Calvin Seminary at 8 o'clock. You heard about it a moment ago. Please make work of getting there, and it'll be a good experience. This will wrap up our work for the day, so we're going to give you after dinner. Dinner starts at 5:30. You have a little bit longer before the next event, which is the Calvin Seminary event. We will not be meeting in here tonight, okay? We will be, don't try. Yeah. Boy, that fell apart quickly. We will, and also tomorrow, I would like us to start at 8:30, okay? 8:30 tomorrow, so we're giving you a little extra time. We have some important things to do tomorrow morning, so don't think about leaving early, but 8:30 tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock at Calvin Seminary, dinner's at 5:30, and Diane is going to close us in prayer.
I'm sure. Can you push this down? Thank you. When I was asked to pray for today, I thought, oh, that's going to be on my mind all day. And it was. I just want to say that my biggest worry this morning was the topic of the Office of Social Justice, because it's so deeply embedded in me, the love for social justice. And the other fear was a little separation between the Canadians and the Americans on that topic. Because I have so many great American friends, and I want to keep that relationship completely intact. So I'm glad an accommodation was formed by inviting the Office of Social Justice, the Canadian equivalency to help, and it brought one memory to my 11-old mind in Nova Scotia, how an American missionary, Ralph Boss, helped my brothers get their driver's license. I don't know why the connection came, but I thought that was wonderful. Let's pray. Creator God, you are our all in all. Your Spirit overflowed us today. Thank you, dear God. Your gifts through peoples were fully displayed today. Thank you, dear God. Your gifts through peoples were fully displayed. Thanks, dear God, for the youthful presence in our delegates. And thank you, dear God, for people with gray hair who are still willing to serve. Thank you, dear God, for the good sense of humor that was present, for the laughter, for the banquet. Thank you for wonderful people who were willing to lead us and serve as officers. And thank you, dear God, for all the candidates that appeared to us this morning. We could celebrate diversity and gender and ethnic. Thank you for the seminary who expanded, gave us more information about their program. Thank you for all of the voices we heard today. And we know, dear God, that not everyone is really happy, and they have to go home and defend the decisions that were made. Will you give us wisdom, compassion, understanding, and help us to always express the love that you have for us, dear God, to those around us, that we may be the hands and feet of Jesus, always. Thank you, dear God, for Jesus' sake. Amen.
Thank you very much, Diane. Dinner's at 5:30. Calvin Theological Seminary, 8. See you tomorrow morning here at 8:30.